Mother's Day nightmare. She rides off and vanishes forever. Picture this. It's Mother's Day, May 10th, 2020, early morning in Salida, Colorado. Suzanne Morphew, a fit and devoted mom of two, kisses her family goodbye, or so she says, and sets off alone on her mountain bike for a quiet ride. But she never comes back. Her bike, helmet, and sunglasses are later found scattered helmet, nearly a mile away, bike tipped over by a cliff. No blood, no crash, just eerie silence. Her phone goes dark around 2:11 p.m. on May 9th. Suddenly, the world shifts from celebration to nightmare. Her husband, Barry, claims he's out of state for work, but data from his truck and phone tells another story, inconsistent, messy, and full of gaps. Meanwhile, Suzanne's daughters are away, and the only clue? A neighbor's call to Barry when they can't reach her. That's part one. A mom vanishes. A husband's story starts to unravel. And lurking behind it all is a question no one wants to face. What really happened on Mother's Day? Barry Morphew says he left home early on Mother's Day, May 10th, 2020 for a work gig in Broomfield, claiming Suzanne was asleep when he drove off. But here's what the electronic trail reveals. On May 9th, Barry's phone pinged around the house dozens of times. He blames it on shooting chipmunks. Between 3:25 and 3:52 in the morning on May 10th, his truck ignition cycled, doors opened and closed, and yet he says he left at 5 a.m. Surveillance video in Broomfield shows him depositing trash, not landscaping. He spends less than half an hour working, then hangs out in his hotel room. Then there's that phone blackout. Suzanne's phone cut off at 4:23 am, and 8 minutes later, his phone went dark. Convenient or calculated? Emails, texts, and deleted messages paint a different picture too. Suzanne had texted, "I'm done," just days earlier. Yet Barry claimed he thought everything was perfect. He refused a polygraph and sold her Range Rover just 2 months after she disappeared. And don't forget the many trash runs buckets dumped across multiple locations, prosecutors say, to get rid of evidence. The official line: Barry's alibi is built on shaky soil, and detectives plus a mountain of digital breadcrumbs are starting to piece together a timeline that doesn't add up. It's the kind of twist that reads like fiction, but it's chillingly real. In the latest indictment, investigators revealed that Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow tested positive for a cocktail of wildlife tranquilizers known as BAM, that's butorphanol, azaparone, and medetomidine. Here's what makes this a game changer. These chemicals are not from a pet vet, they're wildlife grade, used to sedate big animals like deer. Barry Morphew. He was the only private person in that Colorado region with a prescription for BAM thanks to his past as a deer farmer in Indiana. Prosecutors even found a needle cap in his dryer and a tranquilizer rifle with darts in the garage. More than that, Dr. R concluded that Suzanne's body had metabolized BAM before death, meaning she was injected alive, collapsing slowly under the drug's effects. Imagine this: a tranquilizer dart, a controlled substance that paralyzes without a fight, and Suzanne fading in front of her killer's eyes. No struggle, no scream, just silence and a husband who had both the means and access. The BAM evidence isn't just weird, it's specific, rare, and devastating. It's the forensic hook law enforcement needed to tie her final moments not to a tragic accident, but to a covert, calculated murder. In September of 2023, more than 3 years after Suzanne Morphew vanished, her remains were discovered in a shallow grave near Moffat, Colorado, roughly 50 miles from her home in Salida. It was a desolate, high desert stretch, far off the grid. The kind of place only someone with deep knowledge of the terrain would even consider. But what made the discovery truly disturbing wasn't just the location. It was the condition of her body. Suzanne was found still wearing what appeared to be her cycling clothes. Her bones were scattered, sun-bleached, and largely clean, exposed to the elements far longer than they should have been if she'd been buried there the whole time. Forensic experts concluded that her body had likely decomposed elsewhere. That means she was moved. Moved once, then moved again. Think about that. Not just hidden, but re-hidden. It suggests the killer was watching, waiting, and worrying. Maybe they feared discovery. Maybe a search got too close. Whatever the reason, someone went back, dug her up, and transported her to that final resting spot in Moffat. No obvious trauma, no crash, no sign of a struggle where she was found. Just a quiet grave in the middle of nowhere and a terrifying clue that her killer wasn't just cold-blooded, they were calculating. The case was cold until it wasn't. In late June of 2025, a Colorado grand jury dropped a chilling new indictment. It names Barry Morphew again, not just as a person of interest, but as the prime suspect in Suzanne Morphew's murder. And this time, the charges come with something prosecutors didn't have before: her body. The indictment lays it out plainly. Suzanne's remains were not just hidden, they were moved at least twice. Forensic experts determined her body had been left to decompose in one location, relocated to another, and finally buried in a shallow grave near Moffat. That alone tells us something vital. This was no panicked dump. This was deliberate, planned, repeated. But what truly detonated the case was the discovery of BAM, a rare combination of tranquilizers inside Suzanne's bone marrow. These drugs aren't common. They're used to immobilize wildlife. They leave no bruises, no marks, but they paralyze completely. And Barry? He had legal access to BAM thanks to his past work with deer. Investigators also recovered dart caps and tranquilizer equipment from his property. They believe Suzanne was injected while alive, subdued before she could scream, fight, or even run. In the words of the indictment, this was a coordinated effort to conceal a homicide. The timeline is damning, the evidence specific, the motive still debated. But the new charges suggest law enforcement believes they finally have enough to bring Barry Morphew back to court this time, with Suzanne's remains to tell the story he never would. What happened to Suzanne Morphew's body after her death isn't just disturbing, it's revealing. Investigators now believe her remains were moved twice, a haunting detail that reshapes the entire timeline. It begins on May 10th, 2020, Mother's Day. Suzanne disappears from her home in Salida. In the days and weeks that follow, search crews scour the nearby woods, trails, and rivers. Nothing. But behind the scenes, something else may have been happening. Forensic experts believe Suzanne was killed and initially buried somewhere remote, not hidden well, just out of reach, long enough for nature to begin its slow, silent work. Her body began to decompose, far from the public eye. Then, weeks or even months later, the killer returned, dug her up, removed what was left, transported it again. The final resting place, a shallow grave in Moffat, discovered in September of 2023. Forensic clues, sun-bleached bones, low insect activity, and scattered skeletal remains strongly suggest she had not been there long. She had decomposed somewhere else, and whoever moved her had done it with purpose. That's the horror of it, not just a murder, but a series of deliberate relocations. Someone kept control of her body. Someone wanted to make sure no one ever found her. And yet 3 years later they did. Barry Morphew is back in the spotlight, and the legal nets are tight. After the June 2025 indictment, Colorado authorities slapped him with a $3 million bond, and he's currently in custody, awaiting a bail hearing slated for September. What's striking now is the change in tone. Prosecutors are no longer on defense. For the first time, they're on offense. They've got physical remains, forensic proof of body movement, and the BAM tranquilizer evidence in bone marrow. Barry's defense team is assembling ready to challenge each link, from the tranquilizer chain of custody to assumptions about his knowledge of terrain. Public opinion divided. Suzanne's daughters still defend their father, even as prosecutors piece together a damning case. Make no mistake, this is no routine bail hearing. It's a strategic flashpoint. If Barry walks before trial, it could shake the prosecution's narrative. But if he stays locked up, prosecutors can build without disruption, and the pressure mounts toward trial. Barry is not just a defendant, he is the centerpiece of a forensic, digital, and emotional maelstrom. And every day he is behind bars, that pressure cooker clicks closer to trial. When Suzanne vanished in 2020, the story made headlines. But when charges against Barry were dropped in 2022, many assumed it was over. A tragic, unsolved mystery. Another cold case. But that's not what happened. This case didn't freeze, it simmered. Quietly, investigators pushed forward. Forensic scientists analyzed bone marrow. Environmental specialists examined decomposition patterns. Prosecutors waited, not because they gave up, but because they were building something stronger. Now in 2025, the pieces are finally together. A body recovered, a tranquilizer traceable to Barry, a pattern of movement that looks more like a cover-up than panic. The result? A cold case comeback with fire in its lungs. But not everyone's convinced. Barry's defense argues this is just a recycled case, old theories, no direct evidence, and too much speculation. They point to the lack of a confirmed cause of death, the absence of a murder weapon, and the fact that Suzanne's remains were skeletal when found. So, is this the moment justice catches up with Barry Morphew? Or is it a high-profile courtroom gamble built on circumstantial dots? That's what this next chapter is about. The public, the court, and Suzanne's own family are caught in the middle between closure and chaos. As soon as Suzanne's remains were discovered and the indictment hit the headlines, the internet lit up. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube comment sections turned into amateur war rooms, and everyone from cold case fans to seasoned legal analysts had a theory. Some say Barry acted alone, driven by jealousy or control. Others think there's more than one person involved, that someone helped him move the body, maybe even helped cover it up. A smaller, more radical camp believes Suzanne may have staged her own disappearance at first, only to be killed by someone else later. There's no evidence for that, but the internet doesn't need evidence, it needs doubt. Then there's the question no one can ignore. Why move the body twice? Theories range from panic to strategy. Maybe a search team got too close to the first burial site. Maybe Barry wanted to destroy evidence by waiting for the body to decay before relocating it. Or maybe he didn't act alone and someone else made the second move. And Suzanne's daughters? Their unwavering defense of their father adds a complicated emotional layer. Are they in denial, or do they know something the public doesn't? The case has become more than just a legal battle. It's a public obsession. Everyone has a theory, everyone's trying to solve it. But beneath all the noise, one thing remains clear. The truth is out there, buried under 3 years of silence, 2 relocations, and 1 final grave. 3 years, 2 daughters, 1 woman buried twice. Suzanne Morphew's story isn't just about a mother who vanished. It's about the silence that followed, the trail that went cold, and the man who said he loved her, now standing once again in the crosshairs of justice. Her remains tell a story even she never got to speak. A tranquilizer in her system, a shallow grave miles from home, a body hidden, then moved possibly more than once by someone who wasn't panicking, but planning. Barry Morphew says he's innocent, that he's a victim of tunnel vision and bad science. But the evidence, the tranquilizer, the timeline, the buried bones paints a different picture. A picture of a man who knew the land, knew how to hunt, and knew how to hide. And still, despite all the facts, so many questions remain. Why did he do it if he did? Why wait 3 years to strike again? And will justice finally come, or will this case slip again into the shadows? For now, all we have are bones, silence, and a courtroom clock ticking toward truth. So I leave it to you. Was this the perfect cover up or a terrible mistake waiting to be exposed? Do you believe Barry Morphew is guilty or being framed? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes justice isn't just a verdict, it's the story we refuse to let die.